Wow. Mhm.
Hi, Lynette. Do you feel okay? You don't look so good. Hi, Lynette. Are you okay? Can you hear me, Lynette? Hello? Can you hear me, Lynette? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Deanne.
Can you hear me, Lynette?
I don't think she can hear you.
That's what I was afraid of. I tried to say hi or something to her and she was just there, you know.
Let me type her something in the chat. Hold on. Lynette, can you hear us? Can you hear me talking? It doesn't look like you can
If
hear.
you're saying something, I can't hear it. I'm sorry. Do you want me to try and reconnect? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but I don't think you're hearing
The
us.
host muted you.
Yeah, Lynette, we're talking to you, but it doesn't look like you can hear us. So maybe reconnect. Hi, Lynette. Can you hear us now?
Hear me now, Jennifer?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I don't.
Can
I
you
can't.
hear either of us? We're both trying to talk with you.
We can hear you, but you can't hear us.
Can you call her on the phone maybe?
I can't hear either of you when you're
Let
talking.
me try to call her. Hold on.
Third time's the charm.
I'm gonna give her a sec and let her try one more time. I've got her number here, so I can call her. I'm gonna give her a second though.
She had had trouble with that last time too.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I can't.
You can't. Darn it.
I've tried both of the links too.
Do you
Both
want to
of-
try?
Probably the same link, but I just,
I'm gonna call her.
Good.
tried it from different mails and it's still, let me try. Let me try.
Wait. Wait.
you want to test it out, Lynette? Hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yay.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't?
It still didn't work. That's
Shoot.
weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Maybe we should break out the tin cans with the strings.
Or maybe
Else
run
can
to town hall. I don't know. Steve's at town hall.
Yes. Microphone.
Is your volume turned up? Maybe? I don't know.
Oh, that's weird.
Lynette's having technical difficulties. She can't hear us, but we can hear her.
Mm. Well, it wouldn't be that. Where's the speaker? Speaker. Where is the speaker is muted?
Ah.
Where's that?
Okay, so can you hear me now?
I tried to unmute the speaker. Did it work?
Can you hear us?
We can hear
I still
you.
can't hear you guys.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Lynette?
There it is. Woo!
Okay, so you can
So
hear
all
us
it
now?
took was Rob saying something instead of the rest of us?
Silky
It-
voice. Silky voice.
That's it. Hey, Mary Smith. What's
Yes.
the whole thing on the top shelf behind you? It looks like it has like a butterfly preserved in it. Yeah.
That's just looks, it kind of looks like an aquarium, but there's
Yeah.
candles inside.
Ah,
So it's a candle thing. Just a,
it looks like the
I
end of
can
an
light the
aquarium.
candles next time, yeah. Set the ambiance. I feel like a weather forecaster because they say that they actually don't point to what they're, it's the opposite. So it's
Where is Hi there, Rich.
How you doing?
Good.
Ooh.
How come we all look tired? All of us look droopy as heck.
I can tell you why I'm tired. We had a flood last night at the Boys and Girls Club of sewage.
Oh,
So,
no.
Got to clean that up and got fixed today, but still there was a lot of sanitizing and stuff. So,
Yuck.
yep.
A sewer main broke? Is that what you just said?
It was plugged and I had 150 kids here last night using the bathroom.
Right, right. Yeah. I know how it goes. I'm very sorry.
Glad we're meeting on Zoom tonight, Rich. Otherwise, no one would want to sit next to you.
It's all right, Mary. I was so happy to be able to go home and get my clothes off and get in the shower.
I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Rich, you'll pardon me if I snicker the next time I see you shake hands with somebody.
It's all right. Watched them many, many times today.
Okay. I see Paul is here. And John should be here shortly, probably.
Yay.
There's John. All
Hi, guys.
right.
Sorry.
It's all right. So it is 6:01 p.m. and it is Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. And I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Georgetown to order. I've got the flag set up if everybody would like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a question. How come
Yes.
Dan doesn't say the pledge?
I have a problem with the words under God in it. The Constitution and everybody wanted separation of church and state, and that was only put in 1954. So I just bypass it.
Okay. All right. Next, I will call roll. I am Police Judge Lynette Kelsey, Rob Connell,
Here.
Deanne Powell,
Here,
John Jennings,
Here.
Paul Hingen,
Here.
Mary Smith,
Here.
and Rich Barrows.
Here.
Thank you. We're all here tonight. Agenda approval. Does anybody have anything that they want to change or add to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd
no,
Go ahead.
that's what I was going to do, John. You go for it.
No, I'd just like to add in discussion about the parking lot area for where the fire station and the road and bridge is.
Okay.
I have a little information I can give to you guys, and also maybe we can direct staff at that point.
I was just going to ask for, last time John, you had said that you were going to a meeting with the fire authority, and I wanted to know, and it wasn't on the agenda, so I thought it should be added in.
Okay, that'll be part of it then.
Okay. Regarding CCFA. Okay. Anything
Lou.
else? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. You can have it, Rob.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Great. On to audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. We don't have any attendees, so I'm gonna guess we don't have anybody here for audience business. Unless you have something, Bob. Nope. Okay, thank you. So, hearing none, we will move on. We have the payables from February 18th through March 3rd, 2022. Any comments or questions on those payables?
I have a few questions. I just want some clarification. For example, under administration, 1045, 425, it says reimburse for ionizer. What's an ionizer?
That is a spray thing that disinfects, and we were using it in the office till it got dropped and broke. But Steve had it and ordered it and brought it in for us.
I just wondered what an ionizer was, because, you know. The replacement of the survey marker on page 2 at 108730, is that for the 22nd Street Bridge thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Just checking, you know.
And that bill should have been received before the end of the year, but he just got it to me like a week ago. So.
Okay.
Under water fund on page 3, and again, this is just, I don't know what it means. It says RTL transmissions. What's RTL?
It is when people call the locate center for locates, and we get billed for our portion through this service that comes out and handles the locate orders. It's pretty much a monthly thing.
Down lower in that same general area, it's talking about water rights and interest payments on the dam outlet or something.
Yeah.
Could you clarify that?
We have a loan for the work that was done on the dam several years ago. Well, it's probably more than several now,
Yeah.
but that's the annual payment, principal and interest. So you'll see it in 2 different spots.
Yeah, they're right up and down from each other. I just,
Right. One's interest and one's principal.
which it's really sad because we're paying a heck of a lot more on interest than principal, but.
At this point, yes. I think this is only year 3 of that loan.
That we're paying.
Thank you for explaining it.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments on the payables? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the payables?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated February 18th, 2022 to March 3rd, 2022.
I'll second, John.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payables from February 18th through March 3rd, 2022 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was on February 22nd, 2022. Any comments, questions, changes, additions?
At the top of the second page, there's a place where it says that next to the last sentence on the top paragraph, it says, Mr. Robbie also mentioned that the property was on a floodplain. I thought you did that, Lynette. I thought you were talking about getting flooded out when you lived there.
No, we both mentioned it's in a floodplain,
Okay.
so. I probably mentioned the drainage that needs to be corrected more than floodplain, actually.
Okay.
I think Steve was the one that brought the floodplain issue up. So. Okay, any other questions or comments?
There's a typo at the top of page 3. It's supposed to say at a later date, depending on the number of finalists, second from last, but it says 8 instead of date.
I already gave that to Jen.
Okay.
Those kinds of typos you don't have to do, according to Jerry, our legal expert. You don't have to bring those types of things up in the meeting. You can just give them to the clerk.
Cool beans.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2022 minutes as corrected?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion, John.
Great. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2022 regular meeting as corrected. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. New and unfinished business. First on our agenda is Struggles Park improvements. And Bob Hamilton has joined us to help us through this. So thanks for being here, Bob.
Well, thank you for taking time to hear me out, I guess, on this. All of you should have received in your packet about a 7 or 8 page write-up that kind of explains what's gone on since last September and why I'm here tonight. I can go through that, I guess briefly kind of hit the highlights out of it, and then we could talk more about some of the details on there's some sketches attached in the package, and there's also a very detailed breakdown of the cost estimate. As everybody is pretty much aware, the town hired a landscape architect back, I think in 2020, maybe somewhere around there, maybe even 19.
Before that.
Before that.
Yep.
I know.
I first heard about it in May of 2019, and they were already on the job.
So.
Yeah, I know it's been it was a long, hard road getting to last fall when they did their final submittal, and the package got reviewed and approved by all the different commissions in town. And then you authorized in September, I believe, going ahead with the purchase of the restroom, and that has taken off and that's in progress. I got an update this morning that it's supposed to actually go into production. It means they'll start pouring the concrete on the 21st of March. It takes 8 to 10 days to complete. So right around the end of April, it should be ready, and that's what we had heard prior, that it probably would be delivered in early April. So that looks like it's still on track.
Very good.
In December, kind of took a look at the Strauss Park, the whole plan that the DHM submitted. And I asked for, could we did they send an estimate in? What's this going to cost? Well, they did. And I took a look at it and had some discussions with the town administrator at the time. And it had a rather steep price tag, and it's shown on the next page that the whole project would be somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million, which seemed to be a bit much. Deanne?
Not to take away from this part of what we're talking about, but do you have the solid figures on what DHM charged for their part of the Strauss Park plan? Last I heard it was close to
Deanne,
$7,000.
can you
I
please
have no
hold,
idea what they charged.
Okay,
Deanne, please hold the questions until Bob's done with his presentation, if you would,
Okey-doke.
please. Thank you.
Well, when I think I raised the concern, and it was shared by some other people in town. So in talking among the select group, some of my compatriots on the DRC, we put together a committee with members representing Parks and Recreation, Business Promotions, Planning Commission in DRC, to see what we could do to come up with a more affordable approach. And the strategy we took was we'd use the DHM package as kind of a master planning guide, because this is what, we kind of wanted to go in this direction. The town had already paid and been through a lot of work to get there. Decided the best thing, well, we know we couldn't do all this in 1 year anyway, so let's break it into phases that made sense. So we kind of thought, well, the restroom's already going down the road. The next obvious step would be do the shelter. That's the next thing logically you'd need to do. And then that would, after that was done, the plaza hardscape, and then planting, and then the final touches would be the parking lot and kind of cleanup. So we broke it into those 5 phases. And on page 2, you kind of have the cost breakdown for what those, the DHM breakdown for what those would be. Recognizing that we were looking at something probably in the $500,000 range for the shelter. So, well, what's driving that? What could we do? So we looked at materials, we looked at the design of the shelter, we looked at a number of different options. We came up finally with the option that you're going to hear about tonight, that we think we can do for about $250,000. And there's some qualifiers in that, which I'll get into in a minute. We really didn't look at reducing the costs on phase 3, 4, and 5. That's later, to be done at a later time. Wanted to kind of think out of the box, and one of the thoughts came was, this is a focal point of the town. Could we make this into a town project, of an actual, get the community involved? And that seemed to go over very well with all the people involved, and that's what we would plan to do. So to talk about the shelter, and that's really what I'm asking for tonight, is approval to go forward with the shelter. And we did, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, we did get into how we would fund the project. I know from prior meetings that you had with Cindy, she looked at some grant funding and stuff, and that didn't look like that was going to work. So we've done a different approach. We kind of looked at, okay, what are the key things about the shelter? Why are, other than it's falling down and it needs to have major work done to it, what do we really want to accomplish with the shelter? Well, one is we want to be year-round use. Right now, it's pretty limited to Christmas market and other events where vendors come in and use the stalls, because the stalls take up all the space, and it really isn't that usable. So we want a year-round shelter. We still want partitions, but we want to have them removable so they can come in and out when we need them. The booth depth was a problem. It's only about 6 feet deep. We wanted to make it deeper, so we're looking at something that would give us about an 8x8 booth, which everybody thought that was pretty good. People wanted, we wanted to add heating to it, and that makes it more saleable for, wintertime use. New lighting receptacles, replace the roof. And then one of the ideas that came in late was, instead of having a concrete floor, why don't we have the flagstone extend into the booth. And we think we can do that. And we thought that was a great idea. It really would tie the whole park together a lot more. And it'll show off the historic Georgetown flagstone that was pretty prevalent around town. And so, I mean, that's what we were looking at. We looked at downsizing the timbers. They had 8x8 timbers. They get a little more expensive. We could certainly get by with 6x6 timbers, then like maybe a 6x10 beam. The original clause was, well, cedar, and what's there now is spruce or pine. So we felt Douglas fir would be a more economical choice. So that's what we're recommending. The metal roof really doesn't fit downtown. So, and it's expensive, and it has problems with ice fall off and stuff like that. So we recommended going back to the architectural asphalt shingle roof, 50-year roof, similar to what you see around town. Change the siding in the back of the booth, and on the side, the exposed sides, it was proposed to be cedar lap siding. We really like the vertical in the back of the vertical siding, because it gives you a flat surface to be able to put posters on, or whatever you want to do to it. It doesn't need to be cedar, so we're looking at going with a pine or fir vertical siding, either shiplap or just roughs on board. Kind of a rustic thing. We're looking for the rustic approach. We like the exterior is a board and bat, and there's no reason to change that. We'd like to go with the board and bat siding again, pine or fir, something that you wouldn't have found much cedar around here back years ago. And we would like to. We had a structural engineer take a look at the concrete slab. Craig and I also talked about it, and the consensus seems to be is to meet current codes, we cannot use that current slab. So that's going to have to come out. The concrete floor, it's going to have to come out. We're going to have to put a foundation in to get down below the frost line. And I just had a guy out here this morning talking about screw piers, and I'll get into that more in the shelter design. But, and that opens up, not putting a concrete floor back in and putting the Lions flagstone back in. So that helps to pay for that additional cost of the flagstone. The meetings we had with I'll call it the select committee, in attachment 1, kind of lists all of the different things we considered and what the decisions were. I pretty much have gone over everything. It removed a bunch of, removed the metal siding or the metal roofing and the ice melt system and gutters and downspouts. And, we pared the cost down quite a bit with that. The next thing is we looked at some alternate designs. The DHM design has had 2 shelters, one along the Eastland Anderson building, and one that was separated, was in approximately the same place, actually pushed a little bit further out into the parking lot as where the L of the existing structure is. But they were distinctly separate structures, and the idea being to create a passageway through that corner, the L corner, into the parking lot to access the restroom. We definitely need the passageway, but what we finally came up with was an L-shaped structure that will look very much like the one that we have now. And if you look on L3, which is the drawing that's got the big green blob in that's kind of the footprint of what the new structure would be. And the two things that really make this work is the L section, which is covered passageway. We'd have an opening there. Basically, it would have a roof over it, but it would be open, and you could walk through it, have lighting and heat in there. So it would also provide shelter for people waiting in line to use the restrooms. And it would give you direct access to the parking lot and to the restroom area. And then we thought the plan, the DHM plan was to have a separate storage shed located across the parking lot where we could store the portable or the removable partitions and the any other park materials. In looking at the existing shelter or structure that's there, there's a very small, maybe 2 feet deep storage area behind the booths that are in the L section. We said, hey, let's just make that bigger. We'll make it like 8 feet deep and make it a regular room with lighting and heat. And so it could be used as a workshop to work on the park. We could use it to store materials. It'll have a concrete floor. And we can then get rid of the storage shed. We don't need the windscreen that we put in because we'll have a building there. We be like a 5 foot wide door through the passageway area. We could even put a barn door to, on the outside of it to close, have the ability to close it up or, shrink that opening if it's real windy. So, I mean, it gives a lot of options. So that's kind of what the plan was. And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet, and I waited off on this, is the DHM design kind of looked like a, 2x6 framing for the roof and plywood decking on the roof and all that. And you say, yeah, it kind of looks like a garage. We'd like it to look more rustic, but more finished. So what we're planning to do is go ahead with, and we've got to get the structural engineer to bless the loading and all that, but I believe it'll work. Go ahead with 4x8 rafters on 4 foot centers and use 2x6 tongue and groove decking for the roof decking. So we have, when we look inside, it's going to look like, kind of like a timber frame type thing. And the plan is to use all rustic sawn, rough sawn type materials for the posts and the beams and that. We didn't come up with any colors. I mean, right now it's painted green. I mean, if that's a decision to be made later, but I mean, we've got money in the budget to give it 2 coats of the stain or something to seal everything up. So it gets a little pricey, but we're hoping we can shop for materials. And but the budget numbers that are put together include all that. It includes the flagstone. It includes the the timber type roof, and really all the stuff I just talked about. Let me see, what do I want to? And if you look at page 5, that's kind of that's the control budget. That's kind of the roll up of the more detailed sheets that are in Appendix C. The very last column, I mentioned earlier that we're planning to utilize volunteer labor. We have a lot of talent in town, particularly in the construction that, and I've talked to a few of the guys that would be more than happy to volunteer as like leaders for, small teams to do different parts of the work. So if you look at that last column, here's the potential savings using volunteer labor. And those are, just estimate numbers based on the labor cost to have us do some things ourselves. And I mean, you can look through that. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of that. If we hired everything out, we'd be looking at probably including about $25,000 in contingency, which is just, cover things that we didn't think of. We'd be looking at about a $290,000 project. If we can tap town resources get free labor, and none of this stuff is really complicated, so it's stuff that we should be able to do. We could probably do it for under $250. That's kind of the benchmarks. The foundation, what we're planning on doing is we're planning on using helical screw piles. They're metal, basically metal screws that they drill into the ground with they measure the torque as they put it in. until they get a certain truck load. They'll probably go down 10 to 25 feet. We want to get below the Diesel and Anderson foundation so that our new building load gets transferred below their foundation load. And that's one of the reasons for this approach. The other reason is that it's very minimal disturbance, as opposed to digging down and compacting and coming back with a massive concrete foundation. So we would use screw piles to carry the load, deep enough in the ground. And then on top of those screw piles, we build a grade beam, which is basically it's a cast concrete beam that would be supported by those screw piles. There'd be a pile maybe every 8-10 feet, something like that. And that would carry the Diesel and Anderson end of the structure. They carry all the loads on that end of the structure. And then in the front, it's like building a deck. I mean, we put down caissons underneath the posts, and that it's far enough away from the building that should be easy to do. We'll also get a price. As I say, I had a company was out today, and we kind of walked around, and we gave them a tour of the basement and Smokey's building. So they were happy, but they're going to come back with an estimate. And I already have one estimate that is reflected in here, the rough price range. So I think we're in the right ballpark for that kind of a foundation. And the way I got materials is I got quotes where I could for, budgetary quotes for different kinds of materials. Got a lot of pricing online, multiple sources, took the highest source, added a little bit more. And those are the numbers you see. The labor, I actually purchased, and I'm happy to do that, a commercial program that allows me to, look at labor rates down in Denver, and they didn't have anything for up here, but it's based on how long it takes to do something, on a per unit basis times the labor rate, and then you mark it up for contractor. In any places where we're not planning to use volunteer labor, I pretty much doubled. I use a multiplier of 2 to cover contractor profit and overhead and stuff like that. So I feel pretty comfortable with the budget, and to say we've got about 25,000. So it's about 10% contingency to tap into. Material prices, everything keeps going up. So this is not a great time to be doing this, but things are not stable. But I think it's achievable, and we have some things we can make trade-offs on as we move through and keep tracking. Talked about that. Funding, the important part. Met with grant consultant and Mary, and actually got a Parks and Rec. When I met with them last week, they committed out of their capital improvement fund, which they have over $100,000 in it. They committed to $100,000 to this project for this year. I know Mary is there. The conservation trust would be about 30. And then the sales tax cap would be 125. It gets us up to the 255. So we found the money in the 2020 or 2022 budget. How would we talked about why we did why we're doing, why we kind of have retreaded through some of this stuff, what we're going to build, what it's going to be like. Mentioned the volunteer aspect of it, and the schedule is this year. The target's really October. We want it done before Christmas market, and I think that's achievable. One of the nice things about the town funding it themselves is we can start earlier, and we have more control over, when and how we do things. The execution plan, the next step would be, I would want to put together a detailed execution plan that kind of goes through and talks about purchasing. Okay, we planned for the idea that the town would direct purchase most everything. That way we can shop for materials. We can avoid paying sales tax and contractor markup. So we should be able to get the most bang for our buck by doing that. The construction, as I said, a community project. I think it's a great opportunity to get some of the young folks involved in the town. I've talked to a few of my neighbors and stuff, and there seems to be pretty good interest in, rolling up their sleeves and pitching in. I would see it a very focused type of volunteer work. We kind of use the professionals in, pick on their time and their brain to kind of prepackage things as best we can, so that maybe we can now spend a Saturday and get this done, spend a Sunday, get that done type of thing. Any specialty stuff, particularly the foundation, excavating, possibly roofing, although doesn't get much easier than this for a roof. Certainly the electrical, we would use, regular licensed contractors for that. A lot of painting and staining, and I like to get stuff painted and stained before you put it up. That way, once it's up, it's done. I mean, so that's an opportunity where we can, phase things in. And project management, I would like to put a team together, 2 or 3 people, 4 people to kind of manage this. And provide some depth of, of backup there. The one of the people, and I really want to thank him. One of the people on it was Anshel. He has a good legal background, and I'm aware of I've worked in construction and that kind of, so I'm aware of risk and safety stuff, but he kind of made me focus on that a little harder. And that's something I want to put together a written risk and safety management plan. So we identify this, and I've included in the budget money for us to provide PPE, personnel protection, glasses, gloves, hard hats, vests. That's not expensive stuff. We provide that to the volunteers. Boots, tell them to wear their hiking boots. We can get by with that, I think. But I got money in there to go ahead and put some kind of a barricade up around it to keep the public out. Probably a chain link fence or that type of thing. We'll have to kind of look at what the town wants to do there. But I mean, there is
cardboard or plywood, big sheets of plywood with peepholes, like in New York City.
Yeah. Are you volunteered to get those for us?
Well,
at $100 a sheet for plywood.
I'll have them helicoptered in.
Yeah. But that brings up something that you're joking. If you agree that making this a community project, I'd really like to promote it. And we'll get some signage, we'll get some things, and maybe on Georgetown Days in the end of May, because we'd be about ready. I mean, the demolition should be done. We may even have the foundation ready to go prior to that time. That's what I would shoot for. But then, things would start getting visible. So we could put a booth down there and really promote it and let the public know that, what the town is planning, and then also recruit some people for that. Deanne?
We should offer food. Food
Oh,
brings
yeah.
people in, have
Yep.
pizzas there or something,
Yep.
or a truck.
Yeah. I mean, if people are going down and work, I think it's a great opportunity for family members who we don't want kids, and we don't want a lot of people in harm's way. We don't need a lot of people doing stuff, just a few people, and other people can, be on the outside and help and flip burgers or something. There's a lot of things we could do to make it a fun community thing. I'd like to have park. These are thoughts I've had. Park would be a great one to kick it off. put a hard hat on them and say, okay, Parker says go. I think there's a lot of opportunity for the town here. The schedule, March and April, kind of get our act organized, get the execution plan put together, get the engineering, and I've got a quote for an engineer to support this. And he's ready to go if we want to do that. Get permits and get rid of the existing booths probably toward the April to May timeframe. That'll be weather dependent. And we could possibly do some of that, not the concrete, but taking the booth down. I'd like to try and recycle some of that material. I also have a lead from the engineer here that there may be a party interested in coming and demolishing everything above the concrete for the material, basically either at a reduced rate or for free, but he gets the material. One of that's, I would like to keep some of that nice wood. I didn't have anything planned to go on the inside of the storage area, but if we have all those nice boards, we could go ahead and do the inside of that with those boards. So I think we can salvage a lot of the material and save it and recycle it, either give it away or, we'll work the details on that. Okay, I guess I had foundation work in June. So by the time May comes here, that's another thing. By us doing the purchasing, we can order our materials and get them here, and we'll have to figure out where to store them. But one of the things that always holds up construction and runs up price is, waiting on stuff.
Sure.
We can eliminate that problem. Most of it anyway.
Okay.
Get the foundation work in June, July and August, build the structure. September and October, kind of do the interior sheathing, get the electrical done, and wrap it up in early November, and we're ready to go. So that's kind of the game plan.
Okay.
And the next steps are pretty straightforward. And rather than me go through the drawings, I'll let you look at them and ask me any questions, and certainly any questions that come to mind about what I've talked about so far. I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Bob, if you were ready for any questions from the board. So
I think now's the time.
okay, wonderful. All right. Anybody have a question or a comment or a suggestion? Yes, Mary.
So just a couple of questions on the money piece. On page 8 of the proposal, you refer to the project management, and then further down in next steps, number 3, engage a structural engineer. Are those costs included in your control budget? Or
yes.
On page 5, so that comes in
If
under
you
the
look
indirect
at
costs?
under the indirects, you've
Okay.
got project preparation, which is pretty much the next month or two. We're going to get the planning done, get the engineering done. Get the plans in place. At some point, we'll need to get a surveyor in and have him put a couple of benchmarks down, mainly elevation type things. We know where it's going to go, but we want to make sure we have a couple of markers down that we know what the elevation is and where it really is. So a fairly minor surveying cost. Then the mobilization, that's kind of where you're going to see the money is in there for like the safety stuff and fencing to keep the public out, that kind of thing.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we were including that and it wasn't coming around like, whoops, we never
No, that's
budgeted
included.
for.
And you'll see that if you look in the detailed budgets, the stuff you probably can't read because the print's so small. I apologize.
Really? Yeah, I kind of skimmed over that.
It's in that same section under indirect costs there.
Okay.
I've got some tool rentals in there and stuff like that too. So we got
Okay. And then I'm assuming in the risk and safety plan that you're talking about putting together, there's some overall reference to whatever liability the town may have to undertake, God forbid, for any volunteers in case,
Yeah,
somebody decides to put a nail through their hand or whatever.
I had a discussion with Jerry and with, I think it was Steve, it might have been Steve, or I don't know. So we've talked a bit about this, and my understanding is that the town has a policy that we may need to add something to it or something. But Jerry, can you respond to that? I know we talked a bit about it.
Sure. Yeah, we did. And that's doable. There's a provision of the statute that allows for authorized volunteers to be covered by the town's policy, and not only that, but also covered from a governmental immunity standpoint for claims against those authorized volunteers for injuring others. And that's a pretty well accepted doctrine. And it's the advice I've given is that once we have sort of the package of what we want the authorized volunteers to do and sort of how many they are and what their scope of work is, we will take that to CIRSA, our pool insurance carrier, and get them to respond to that, make any adjustments they think are necessary. It's possible we may need an insurance rider with CIRSA, but it'll be the most affordable place to protect those people and to protect the town from injuries those people might do to others inadvertently. So we're on top of that, and it's territory that's well understood in local government insurance world.
Yeah, CIRSA does a great job with regard to volunteer policies, probably much better than others. In fact, we already have done the audit with CIRSA with regard to the volunteers from the previous year. But if we know beforehand who's going to do what and how many people they're going to be, then we can give that to them. And there's not much adjustment because they've got a pretty good policy. But I agree with Jerry. We also would look at additional riders depending on the work that's being done.
Okay. And then
that's part of what will go in that plan, because the operative word is, we want qualified volunteers. I mean, we're not going to open it up to just anybody who happens to walk up and with a hammer in their hand. We need to have the right people doing the work. So,
well, and then I'm sure too that includes a certain age and everything. Then just the other thing I noticed on the decision matrix, apparently you deleted the gutters and downspouts, and I would just throw out, I know this is something that can always be added. However, perhaps it could be reconsidered at this point. We do have a lot of winter events where we would like to use Strauss Park in those booths. And in the past, when, the sun is out and the snow is melting and people are standing in front of the booth and all the water is coming off the roof down onto the people who are standing in line for whatever purposes, can be a little bit of a deterrent. Not only that, but then it also ices up overnight. We're talking tree lighting events that we have down there, Christmas market, of course. This year we kicked off our Winter Fest. Our hope is that we utilize Strauss Park and those booths more and more, especially after this refresh project. And I can see that there's going to be some times of inclement weather where the gutters and downspouts might become a little bit more desirable. So, but thanks for answering the questions on the cost on the project.
We have considered that. We moved away from the gutters and downspouts because it's like 100-foot run, and we're concerned about how do you drain that with a roof and so forth. What we have put some money in there's nothing on the drawings yet, but there is money in the budget. And I think it's in the flagstone section, is to put in
French drains.
Yeah, basically an in-ground drainage. It's like a 5-inch cup type thing with a grate over it that runs the whole length, and it can drain off groundwater. Yeah. Winter's problematic because okay, you drain it. Where does it go? It goes into a pile of ice someplace. So, you might be back into heat tracing, but, we could certainly run a heat tape down that as well. I mean, there are things that could be done. I think that's something that we get further into this, we may want to take a second look at. But it is, as you mentioned, it is something that could be done later as well.
Especially too with, adding the infrared heaters in the booth. I think that's a great idea, but that's going to generate some more melt on top, and
Yep.
so.
Yeah,
So-
probably not as much
But
as
no,
you think,
thanks. Yeah.
because they are infrared. They're going to heat the people below.
You're gonna go down.
Yeah, but they'll breathe, and then it'll go. Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Yes, Deanne, you had your hand up?
Oh, when Bob was talking about getting it surveyed, I think it would be a halfway cool. This is just total fluff and has nothing to do with substantial building. To get a real measurement of our altitude, and maybe even put up a plaque and have the surveyor's stake there beside it that says we're 8,000 whatever feet at that particular point.
That's a good idea. I mean, we're going to need to put a monument in. Everything I've done so far, it's been off of the topo maps and the kind of feeling for where things are out in the parking lot. And that's why I said we definitely want to put a surveyed monument that says the elevation is this at this point. So
Yeah, because it'd be like at the steps of the Capitol building in Denver, it says 5280, only this is ours,
And I mean, that's something we can, we would have, we'll get the reference now, and then even if we have to go back later and put a medallion or something, I would think that'd be pretty easy to do.
Yeah, that was the point. Make sure that they grab those numbers and the exact placing.
Okay. Anything else, Deanne?
I thought this presentation, the paperwork and stuff you sent was really nice. I would like to see the actual names of people, like on page 7 in the project funding and finishing, it says the town's grant consultant, and I'd like to see Cindy's name in there just for clarification and ease of referencey things and stuff.
I'd be happy to do that.
But this looks really nice and professional. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anyone else?
I'd just like to say thanks to Bob for putting all this together and doing a lot of really good work. It looks like a wonderful project, Bob.
I'm excited about it. I was hoping you would get excited too and give us the thumbs up.
Definitely. Anyone else? I love the idea of having it be a community project. That worked really well with Foster's Place, and I think this could be a really wonderful community project for everybody to get some personal investment into it. So it's a great idea. Thank you.
One of the things I want to just pass on is just that open passageway. If you look on the big drawing that's got the little foundation, it says foundation details, but we've got a lot of wall space, like in that L shape. We talked about, it'd be a great place to go ahead and put, some historic Georgetown pictures, like a storyboard type of thing, snapshots in time of whatever, the downtown area, the mining, whatever, we could do that way, but kind of permanent information to people so that, as they walk through, oh, this is pretty neat. And, I wonder what was here. I mean, I just learned this morning that there were a whole bunch of buildings in Strauss Park that burned down. And, I didn't know that. And there's just so much in this town. It's so rich with history that
It is.
we need to look at ways to show it off. And with the booths being open, there's more opportunity there too, to do the same kind of thing.
Yep. All right.
One more thought,
Yes.
just so you're aware, the plan is on the removal partitions in the booth, they'd be partitions. So the counters that are there now, we're not planning on counters. And the thoughts were a lot of vendors could bring their own table, or we could buy a few tables that fit in that 8-foot space nicely and rent them. We don't need to have a permanent thing, because even setting up a temporary, front counter gets to be complicated, where the partitions are easy. You just slide them in and pull them out, and
Right.
it works easy. So a lot of good ideas from a lot of people have gone into this.
Yes, it does represent a lot of hard work, and a lot of thought went into it. And I thank you so much for all the hard work you've put into it, and everyone else that's worked on it. So at this point, if I don't have any more questions from board members or comments, oh, okay. Looks like Amanda Cooper is wanting to be promoted. Is that what I'm reading?
I think she's saying her hand was not raised.
It was a mistake.
Okay, sorry.
It was a mistake.
All right, good. Okay, so in that case, do we just need a motion from someone to proceed with this?
Okay. Yeah. Please.
Is that correct? So who would
Yeah,
like to make
proceed
that
and
motion?
Authorize the funding source.
I make a motion that we authorize the funding of this project and proceed wherever we need to.
Second.
And that,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize the funding and proceed with the next phase of this project as discussed in the meeting. Any further discussion? Was that a, go ahead, Deanne.
I'd just like to say I'm really glad that you guys have come back around to what the rest of us have been asking for since May of 2019. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Well, motion passes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very
And
much.
thank you again, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Now the real work begins.
Right. No more fun for you.
Nope.
So next we have ordinance number 1, series 2022. This is a public hearing and second reading, an ordinance amending section 17.08.170 and 17.08.180 of the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning the Design Review Commission.
I'm the staff report on this.
All righty.
Members of the board, you saw this at first reading a couple weeks ago, so I don't have a lot to add. Mary Smith had asked one question. I want to address that. As you know, the structure of the ordinance is to really give enforcement review timeframes and powers really to what happens with certificates of appropriateness as they are being processed and as building permits are applied for and as the construction takes place. And I won't repeat how I described those various steps and so the ways in which the faithfulness to the details of the COA are ensured as a result of this ordinance, because that was the concern that was expressed. And that's what the ordinance is targeting, is to make sure that construction as it actually takes place is faithful to the conditions, requirements of the COA. So that's what the ordinance does. And you can ask me specific questions about it if you'd like. The Design Review Commission, of course, has seen this, and you see their recommendation, which is approval. Mary Smith had asked a question last time about whether because we'd said, look, During the process, yes, this really closes some loopholes. And you'll notice the second section of the ordinance on the second page that talks about adds to the enforcement, ordinary maintenance, or repair permitted sections of the code. And we added a new subsection A to say, besides that, you've got to continuously maintain the conditions of a COA. And Mary's question was a good one, which is, well, what about structures out there that got a COA a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and they have departed over time from the requirements of their COA as time has gone on? And can we use this? Does this cover that? And I deferred and said I wanted to give a little thought, which I did. And I'm very comfortable saying, yes, it does cover that. And yes, we are able to go out to properties that have COAs. They've not come in to get their COA amended, but nevertheless, what's happening on the ground is departed from the requirements of the COA. And really, they don't have any legal non-conforming protection, because in departing from the COA, that's not legal. So it's very different. I'm glad I didn't have the answer right on the spot, but I'm glad I waited to give you the answer, and the answer is a good one. You know, legal non-conforming use is somebody's got a structure that's 10 feet tall, and you change the rules and say, okay, all structures in that zone district are now 8 feet tall. They're legal non-conforming when it was built and you changed the rules. It's the absolute reverse here. They were legal when they got the permit, and by virtue of a separate action that did not come in for approval, they've departed from that approval, and that allows you to use this section to enforce. And besides that section, you'll notice it refers to code section 1704-070, which is incorporated there and it gives yet more remedies. And those remedies, when you go to that section of the code, are citation into municipal court. So we've got a wide range of tools now to be applied to forcing COAs. And I recommend that the board take any comments from the public and hopefully take a motion to approve. The DRC meets on Thursday. I'm going to attend their meeting, and I'd love to report passage to them at that meeting.
Okay, let me go ahead and formally open that public hearing. It's 7:01 p.m. at this time. And do we have anyone from the public who'd like to speak?
I don't believe we have anybody.
Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing at 7:02 p.m. Board, any comments or questions on this ordinance? Okay.
There we go.
All
There's
right.
a motion in the
then-
packet.
Yep. If anyone would like to make that.
I can go ahead and do that.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Awesome.
I move to approve ordinance number 1, series 2022, an ordinance amending sections 17.08.170 and 17.08.180 of the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning the Design and Review Commission.
I'll second, John.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 1, series 2022. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Marvelous. All right, thank you so much. Next, we have resolution number 3, series 2022, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between Clear Creek County and the town of Georgetown regarding the distribution of sales tax revenue. Steve, did you want to?
Well, I can just, I mean, I've written a little bit about it, and as you're aware, the voters of Clear Creek County approved a 1% sales tax increase last November. That's dedicated to road and bridge improvements and repairs. There was a share back provision in that particular agreement whereby there's a formula already adopted that suggests that Georgetown will get its fair share of this money. So the county drafted an IGA to cover the distribution of those funds as they come in. That's on a quarterly basis. And I've shared this with Jerry. He has no problems with it. I reviewed it. It's really pretty simplistic. I didn't have any problem with it either. I think the one question that Lynette had was with regard to the payment of the funds, and the county's indicating that after the end of the quarter that they'll remit payment to the incorporated municipalities by the 10th of the following month. Lynette had a concern about that. I sniffed at it, but I decided this was the county's agreement, so I wasn't going to say anything, but I did ask the question and was told that no, they have full confidence that they'll be able to issue payment by the 10th of the month. I'm suggesting that might be a little difficult since they don't self-collect, but we're not here to argue with them. We just want their money or our portion. So I would advise and recommend that you guys go ahead and approve the resolution, which then approves the intergovernmental agreement with Clear Creek County, as well as authorizing the police judge to sign said agreement.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? All righty. If nobody has any questions, there is a recommended motion in the packet if someone would like to make it.
I'll make it. I move to approve resolution number 3, series of 2022 as presented. Would you also like me to have the police judge sign it then?
If you approve the resolution, John, it's in there already.
Okay, we're good.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 3, series 2022 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the selection of the finalists for town administrator's position. Steve, do you want to start this off?
Yeah, I'll give you a little intro. I think at the last meeting, we indicated to you that we had 6 individuals that we were interested to interview as semifinalists. And so we scheduled those interviews Thursday and Friday a couple weeks ago. And then we had one holdover who actually was going on a job interview on the East Coast. And so he asked if we would consider holding a spot open for him the following Monday, which I don't remember what date that was. And so Mary and I agreed. However, that weekend he got the job. Yeah, congratulations to him. I'm very happy for him. And as he should do, respectfully, because of the ICM and Code of Ethics, he should withdraw any other further consideration because he was in active negotiation. So he did so, and I wished him the best of luck. Anyway, so Mary and I did interview 5 candidates on that Thursday and Friday. We reviewed those candidates a little more in detail between the 2 of us the following Monday, and decided that we'd move ahead with doing reference checks for 4 of them, which I started working on last week. We met again yesterday afternoon to discuss those, and found out customarily what I do, because this business is so darn fickle, is I send out a confirmation email to all the people that we may be considering as finalists to make sure that, number 1, they're available, and number 2, they're still interested. And lo and behold, one of the candidates we were really pretty excited about meeting and thought did really well withdrew. He was concerned about the fact that he was going to relocate from Iowa, had a wife and 2 young kids and was really concerned about the housing situation. And so he felt at this time that it would be better for him with withdrawal rather than to come and get excited about a job and maybe accept something that he's not ready to take. And so we were down to 3. And so we reviewed the 3 candidates, talked a little bit about them yesterday, talked about what I found out when I did some of my background work on them. And we have made a recommendation that Lynette will read off for you to approve as finalist. And then after you do that, I've got a little bit more to talk about what's coming up. So, Madam Police Judge.
Okay, our 3 finalists are Rick Caroglian from Brush, Colorado, David Niemeyer from Tinley Park, Illinois, and Guy Patterson from Fort Collins, Colorado.
So as I stated in my write-up in the packet, if unless there's somebody that objects to those 3 after our due diligence, I would entertain a motion for the acceptance and naming of those 3 individuals as finalists as has been presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the list of finalists as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Okay,
Wonderful.
so moving forward, what we have scheduled, obviously the board at the last meetings decided that they were going to do their interviews on Saturday, March 19th. It was Mary and I's desire, and that's been since agreed to by Lynette, that we begin at 8:30 in the morning, but that we run each and every interview concurrently. So that's 4.5 hours straight. The reason is the momentum doesn't need to break for a lunch break, and not just for one final candidate. So you would begin at 8:30 with a pre-meeting with me. About 9 o'clock would be your first interview, and your last interview would end at 1:30, and then you would begin deliberations, et cetera. So I can answer any questions about that, but let me talk a little bit about what the rest of their schedule will look like. We do have a finalist meeting with staff members. That's the Friday before your guys' interview in the afternoon at 2:30 to 4:30. It'll give it a good opportunity for staff to meet with all of the candidates together, and an opportunity for me to get their reaction, not only from staff's opinion, but also watch the candidates in action. I think they all do very well. Later
What
that
day was that?
it'll be that Friday, but it won't be open to anything but staff and the candidates. So,
Wait
and
a
then
minute, what Friday?
the Friday, the 18th, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I just missed the number, sorry.
Okay, no. And then that same day after they get done meeting with staff, then we have scheduled a public meet and greet. That is for the public. That is not for the board members. Thank you. So I would ask that you not attend. That meet and greet is over at the community building. It's already been reserved for 5 to 6. And so that'll give an opportunity for any of the community members. I'm sure it'll be a mass group, but that'll be great if it does. To meet the candidates, for the candidates to give a little introduction to themselves, and then go around the room and do some handshaking, et cetera. Yes.
Time?
Stan?
Oh, I'm sorry, 5 to 6.
Okay.
It's going to be a short one. And then again, on the Saturday, the 19th is the board interviews. And so we do have the Heritage Center meeting room scheduled. Mary's got that arranged, and she and I'll set that up Friday afternoon. Would ask that the board members try to get there by 8:30 that are going to participate. I'll do a little bit of a rundown as to what you can expect during the day, what's allowable and what's not allowable, et cetera. And then I'll turn it over to Lynette, that mean old taskmaster, who will lead you through 4.5 hours of interviews. I would encourage you that if you think you're going to need something to eat or you need a snack, bring it with you. I think we'll have water. I don't know if Mary's figured out the coffee pot yet, but I'm sure she'll work very hard on that. But we'll have at least water to keep you going there that day. After the 1:30, the board has an opportunity to decide how they want to handle it. Most, and I'd say most, it's been 99% of the times, governing bodies decide that they're going to deliberate and try to select a candidate at that time. I've only had one exception, and that's only because we have so many finalists. They really wanted a chance to get a clear head after 6.5 hours of interviews and think about it. And then they came back and made the decision at the next meeting in 30 minutes. And you'll be given an opportunity to rank candidates, and then when it's advisable, I'll be informed, and then I'll come over and assist you with discussing that ranking, discuss the framework for any negotiations for a successful candidate or candidates, do some of that final touch-up stuff. This will all be done in an executive session, so there's not a need to have to worry about entertaining a whole group of people, which you would if you had an open meeting. We've had copy printer problems all week, so I haven't barely even started on finalist packets. And I apologize for that, because I usually like to get them out early, but I also will admit I usually do them from home and mail them. However, with the way the Postal Service is now, if we're not doing the interviews until December, I could go ahead and mail them to you. But since you want to do the interviews next week, I will do them, and I'll have them available. And you guys can come pick them up Monday here at Town Hall in the afternoon after I get to town, the SDN.
I was just going to suggest, what about using the copier at the fire department?
Well, it could, except for I'm the guy doing the job and I'm going home tomorrow. So I'm sorry. I had hoped this guy was going to get this sucker fixed, but he just didn't. And there's a lot of copying to do. And like I say, I'm used to doing it at home. I got no problem. I got binder clips and paper clips and staplers and all that office supplies because I run a business. But I just wish that you could have had them a week before the interviews. Rich, you had a question?
Yes, are we going to use a standard set of questions for each of the three finalists and then rotate who asks the questions?
Yes, sir, you will. I have a set of questions that I'm refining now. I will have a ranking sheet that's consistent with the questions that you ask, and I will also include a finalist assessment, which will recap what Mary and I heard during the semifinalist interviews. So there's a couple. I mean, we're talking about the technical aspects, budget stuff. I'll include the selection survey and the selection comments that were received, and you'll have obviously the application packet. I'll put a job description in there to refresh your memory as to what there was. Their application packets. And, oh, the other thing, because we haven't touched on it, is with regard to salary and compensation. This one's going to be pretty easy, because there's nothing going to be complicated. So I will put a draft offer sheet in there, which gives you some parameters for employment. We'll have a salary range, which we can discuss salary for the particular candidates at the meeting after the interviews, but also talk about health insurance or moving or vehicles and blah, 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 just those basic things. And all I did was sort of steal some of the parameters that you already had on Kent Brown's contract. So it shouldn't be any surprise what you see in there, but it'll give me the basis of what I can negotiate and can't negotiate with a possible successful candidate. I will set you up to succeed as well as possible. So again, like I say, I'll get the application packets done this weekend. And then I usually get here no later than noon, even with the weather this week. I got here by 11:30. So feel free after lunch to stop by Town Hall, and I will have your packets ready for you, all of you.
Okay.
Any questions before we get to the final stages? Yeah.
What day is that you're getting here? That we can pick up packets.
It'll be next Monday, whatever day that is.
Okay.
It's supposed to be good weather, so I don't think I'll have any problem. That'd be the 14th, Deanne.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
It'll be in the 60s. We could have these interviews outside.
You could, except I'll still be freezing because it's going to be 70 in Canyon.
We'll wear
right.
Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
So any other questions for Steve? And thank you, Steve. And oh, yes,
Yeah,
Deanne.
Deanne.
Are you going to include something about, you're saying you're limiting us to what we can ask them. I would really like to see something about being able to ask them about the historic status here.
You will
The
be
national
happy, you will
historic-
happy to see a question then there with that regard.
Good. Thank you.
We felt it was important enough issue for you that, and an important enough question to ask on behalf of the town of Georgetown. Mary and I did some due diligence because of the technical aspect of it, but the question that's going to be asked is still a more fit and feel and then their beliefs with regard to historic preservation.
It's our bread and butter, so we need to not have somebody come in who wants everything to turn into chrome and black plastic, you know.
Yeah, you wouldn't even get away with that in Canyon City. You could run out of town, but yeah, I agree. No, so there's a question in there.
Yep.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? All right. Then I just wanted to thank both Steve and Mary for all their hard work on pulling this together. It's very much appreciated.
I appreciate Mary's help. We've had pretty good time, I think.
Yeah.
All righty. The last thing under the action items is, I'm afraid I didn't explain it as well as I could have. HB 21-1271 is actually a House bill from last year that allocated some money through DOLA to fund various things surrounding housing, and both the county and Idaho Springs are interested in applying for a grant through DOLA for planning grant. And they just made mention that if we could provide letters of support to go with their applications, it would be much appreciated. So I said I would take it to my board. Does anybody have any objection to providing those letters of support? Yes, Deanne.
Does it obligate us to anything?
No. Letters of support, it's basically we support their efforts.
Will it exclude us from future possible if we want to apply for something similar next year or something?
No, actually,
No.
the truth is, from what my understanding, that this is what the county manager was talking about. This is actually phase one in their ability to access funding for affordable housing projects in the future. That this sort of needs to be done as an initial step. So I could be wrong, but I think this is what he was talking to me about a few weeks ago. So in answer to your question, no, it shouldn't preclude us at all.
So under the umbrella of the county, Georgetown may see some benefit because we're trying to proceed with some things here too.
Yes.
True.
But right now we're just supporting it with a letter.
Right. And in my view, it helps to demonstrate that it's not each of us working independently and sometimes even in conflict. It demonstrates that we're all recognizing that it's not just the county, it's not just the towns that have a housing shortage that needs to be solved. It's each of them are trying to solve it, and we're working together as much as possible. So I don't see any downside to offering letters of support ever. It's good community building. So let me just ask one more time, does anybody have any objection to providing those letters of support? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so good job. Next, we have staff items. The interim administrator's task list is first on
Yeah,
that.
I didn't have time to do a report, sorry. I
Okay.
didn't have anything entertaining to say anyway.
Well, the report's in our packet, so we can read. You've been working hard. Okay.
So you guys know this task list will be updated. It will be given to the finalists, as well as the selection survey and the selection survey comments, because I think it's number one, important for them to understand what it is the town's working on. But, if you look at the selection survey, there's talks about reorganization and compensation surveys and all that sort of stuff. And they need to have a flavor for those things that you guys think are priority. And that's both the board and the staff, because there is a question in there as to what they believe their top 3 priorities are in the first year. So it'd be nice to know that y'all's on sync.
Right. Precisely. Okay. Next we have COVID update, and I don't have anything new. Does anybody have anything?
That's good news.
Okay. I was kind of sad to see we had another death in the county that I hadn't been aware of. So the county's up to 11 as of February 14th. That was the last update that I found on the county website. So, but no new hospitalizations. And so we'll just keep hoping for the best, working towards keeping the counts down. Lodging tax. I wanted to bring this up. Do you want to start us off, Steve, or do you want me to?
No, you're okay. You know what you need to do.
Okay. So we've been talking for a couple of years now about the idea of putting a lodging tax in place. It would, if we had thought of it as being a good thing to earmark those funds for funding the promotions commission, because they need additional funding sources. And 2 years ago, the hotel wasn't really up and running, and we were in the middle of a pandemic. We started the pandemic in 2020. And then last year, yes, the hotel was up and running, but we really didn't have a good feel for how that changed our sales tax revenues for lodging, so that we could base our Tabor estimates on something real. It would have just been a guess. And however, we'll have last year's sales tax revenues that are split out for lodging, and then we'll have the first few months of this year, and hopefully that will give us some way to make an educated guess on how much that lodging tax would generate in the first year, which is a requirement under Tabor. And you want to come very close, and you don't want it to be your estimate to be too low, because then it requires refunds. And you don't want it to be so high that it's ridiculous and we get challenged on it. So just wondered if that was something that the board wants to pursue, because we're going to need Jerry's help on that. We're going to need the help of the new administrator when they're hired. So just wanted to see where the board was at on that issue. Yes, Deanne.
How much do all of the taxes added together come out to? Would this somehow or other be prohibitive? Are we getting up close to 10% or anything between all of them?
Well, it depends on where we set it, obviously, and we haven't really set a number. We'd be looking at what are other communities around us charging, because we're not wanting to, go sky high over that. But we want it to be a meaningful income. If we decide to go that direction, we want it to, actually generate some meaningful funds for the promotions commission to operate with. So it hasn't been set. That's part of the discussion. We're talking about, should we proceed with it? So. Yes, I think John had his hand up, and then we'll go to you, Rich.
Yeah, I think we should proceed with this. I think that it's been a long time, and you know, all your reasons were good reasons that we held off, but the promotions does need money to promote the town. You know, we need to back them up, and they need to have a good source of funding that's theirs. So I would agree that moving forward on it is a good idea, and we can set the rates. You know, we can look at what the other towns are doing and set the rates a little bit later on.
Okay. Rich.
I'm new to the discussion, so this would just be like we're not generating any sales tax revenue from the existing lodging now. Is that correct? And
We
then
are.
We are. So
Yes.
we're already taxing them on each room they sell, correct?
It's a percent, you know, the
Yeah, a
sales tax
percentage.
percentage.
Just
Yeah.
straight sales
then-
tax.
The difference between this tax and other taxes, Rich, is because it's dedicated as a lodging tax, it can only use for marketing and promotions of the community. It can't be used for general fund purposes or other dedicated purposes.
Very good. And then what about, so short-term rentals, are they included in this lodging tax?
Yeah.
They should be.
I don't remember. I think so, but I don't remember.
That was one of the discussions items.
Yeah, I think when we discussed this the last time around, yeah, I know Business Promotions is in support of this, and I'm sure they will take it up at their next commission meeting, you know, the first week of April, and come with a recommendation of that also. They were looking into the different percentages, and mind you, there are members on Business Promotions who have concerns about this because that's the business that they're in. If you looked at the sales tax revenue, you know, that our treasurer shares with us, you know, overall, just for 2021, it looks like we had, you know, $1.5 million in sales tax revenue, and lodging was 24,000. If I'm, you know, I mean, I'm reading the numbers off, but I just want to make sure that we're interpreting it correctly. The county also has a lodging tax that our hotels, our lodging has to, you know, accommodate that. But again, this money would go direct towards our marketing and business promotions, which is what we're trying to, you know, support and expand.
Yeah. So, any other questions or comments on this? Rob or Paul? Paul's got a thumbs up. Rob?
Yeah, I think we should pursue it. We're probably one of the few towns in the state of Colorado that doesn't have a lodging tax.
I just have a question. Who's going to do the research? Is that Steve or the new person, or who's
Well,
going to
the reason we're asking it is, you saw it was on my task list. I mean, it's an item that's going to be ripe for discussion in probably May and June. Obviously, you have to have a question in place by the first part of September, then we'll certify the ballot for the county clerk, et cetera. So it'd be something, I think, but not knowing whether you guys were interested, then no, I don't know that there needed to be any due diligence, but it sounds like there needs to be some momentum put towards that. And I've been going through my files to see what I may have to throw into the cause to try to lead that person down the right direction.
Yeah. So there are certain deadlines for, if you want an issue to go on the ballot, you have to do certain things at certain times. And now's the time to be talking about whether you want to and working towards that, so that you don't get caught, oops, we missed the deadline and we have to wait for the next election. So just,
yeah.
Anything, Rob, from you?
I think that it's probably a good idea. I mean, you know, we need any source of revenue is good, right?
You know, there's always, there's give and take. I mean, there are differences of opinion, and Deanne was right to point out that if your taxes and everything starts increasing to a point, people start to go, I'm going to stay at this one instead of this one because they charge fewer taxes and fees. So it's good to talk about it though. And we definitely need different funding for our Business Promotions Commission. So,
Whenever I've stayed at a hotel, I've never looked at the taxes.
well, I have.
How many times have you gone, gee whiz, I'd love to stay at this one. Boy, the taxes are high. Let me try a neighboring town.
I think though, Rob, oh, sorry.
Go
You
ahead,
bring up
Mary.
a good point though. Rob, you bring up a good point. I think the lodging rates in Georgetown and the reason that, the microtel is full and our short-term rentals are booked is because we have extremely reasonable rates compared to the surrounding counties where a lot of the guests, the tourists are headed to. So they can stay here for a heck of a lot cheaper. And, and then they're still within a short drive up to Summit County or wherever they're headed. So, even with a minimal lodging tax, we can greatly benefit from that.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Rob just doesn't have to check because he gets paid so much for being a selectman.
No kidding. Yeah.
With the car.
I just want to know I'm willing to forego my statue for Bob Hamilton's in Strauss Park, but saying what kind of guy I am.
All right, great.
We want you to proceed, Steve.
Well, I'll just put it on the list for somebody else to proceed with.
Okay, well, that guy.
Perfect.
Okay.
We're in handoff mode at this point in time.
Yeah. And then lastly, John requested a discussion on the event parking lot as it regards the fire authority.
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe have staff pursue figuring out what we can do to pay off that project so that we can keep moving this fire station and road and bridge down without too many delays, because we're going to want to start surveys and planning and things like that, at least pre-planning. Even if we're all a ways off, we still need to do a lot of that work. So I had an estimate for the payoff, but it would be good for staff to come back to us with something solid that we could actually look at and decide to go forward if we want to. And that's all I have.
As a little background, interestingly enough, is that when the town's been making payments, they've been starting to apply those payments to the lots to the north and not the lots to the south. So one of the things I asked Mary to investigate is whether future payments obviously could be put, at least the next two could be put to that particular lot, and maybe that would get paid off, and then maybe a possibility of transferring lots or collateral to free all them up, short and absent of having to pay the whole thing off. So
sure.
Perfect.
And is it my understanding, John, that the fire authority has a tentative kind of timeline in mind of maybe in a couple years?
That would, yes, that would follow. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to work. We're going to work on the IGA and see, where we're at with the towns and whatnot. But if everything moves forward, yes, that would be the timeline.
there were some other options that I threw out as possibilities short of paying it off too. So Mary and I can readdress those and see if anything has any legs short of paying it off. I don't know how much is remaining balance, but I'm assuming it's not insignificant. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it wasn't insignificant.
Right. Okay. All right, Deanne, yes?
John, when will the fire authority's website be up? You had said last time that they were working on it. When will it be available to be able to read the, fire plan and stuff?
Well, I just asked today, and they're working on trying to get it in a couple months as they develop it. They're trying to, the website developers trying to come up with something that is real full that other fire departments are going to want to buy into as well. So it's, hopefully well thought out.
So couple months. Okay. Any other questions for John on this? Thank
The
you, John.
IGA stuff, just in case I forgot, the IGA stuff we're talking about tomorrow, and we're trying to, get something together for our lawyers so that the fire authority lawyers, so that we can send it out to the different municipalities.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much. Anybody have anything else? All right, if not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Right on.
And it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
You should be
opposed?
saying aye.
All right, it is 7:40 p.m. and thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.